Hey, this is the WatchCats Daily News Roundup for Monday, April 7th, 2025. We're going to be recapping some of the big DOGE stories you might have missed over the weekend, and there's quite a few, so buckle up. First up, the Internal Revenue Service will be slashing about 20,000 jobs, including the entirety of its Office of Civil Rights and Compliance, which encompasses about 130 staff responsible for protecting the rights of taxpayers. And the IRS has also announced that in the coming week, they will be launching a hackathon, bringing in outside engineers, including a partnership with Palantir, a company mostly known for developing sophisticated surveillance software and technologies. The goal is to build one API to rule them all. That's Application Program Interface. And the idea is to make IRS records more easily available via cloud-based services and search through those records more efficiently. It should be noted, this is not necessarily a case where this has not been done in the past just because there weren't technical geniuses on board. In general, government databases like this, especially very sensitive ones, are deliberately compartmentalized, which is a kind of deliberate acceptance of some measure of inefficiency in order to provide greater privacy and greater data security. Right? When you have easy centralized access to a lot of sensitive data, that becomes a more attractive target for cyber attacks because the value of the data that you're able to extract on a successful breach is better. And it also, of course, having data compartmentalized makes it somewhat easier to enforce privacy rules. The piece about the DOGE Hackathon coming up, incidentally, is by McKenna Kelly of Wired, who we spoke to on our most recent WatchCast podcasts. We absolutely recommend you check that out. So what are the functions that a unified IRS API is going to serve? Well, one of them may be better immigration enforcement, or at least more aggressive immigration enforcement. Immigration authorities are requesting from the IRS the use of access to their records to find and presumably deport some 7 million unauthorized immigrants. This is something that apparently caused a certain amount of shock and consternation among IRS staff, because this is not traditionally something we've done with IRS records. IRS records can be disclosed to law enforcement, usually on the order of a judge, as part of serious criminal investigations, but merely being in the country without permission is a civil rather than a criminal offense. And so this is not a traditional way IRS data has been exploited. And indeed, sort of for good reasons. Unauthorized immigrants still, under the law, must and often do pay federal taxes to the tune of over $10 billion a year. And the policy in the past has generally been that we do not want to deter people who are working here, even if they're unauthorized, from fulfilling their obligation to pay federal taxes. Of course, people might be a little more skittish about doing that if they come to believe that filing your taxes is a recipe for getting deported. Our other guest, incidentally, on that most recent Wired podcast, that most recent WatchCast podcast, was Wired's Victoria Elliott, who also has a new piece up over the weekend looking at the Department of Veterans Affairs, where DOGE staffer Sahil Lavingia has effectively taken charge of overhauling the agency's digital infrastructure. He is supposedly using AI in an effort to revamp the agency's code, and also has reportedly been pushing for full digitization of their processes, meaning eliminating paper forms entirely and going fully digital. Veterans Affairs administers benefits for veterans and their families, a total of about 10 million people. And of course, many of those people are elderly and have visual impairments and other barriers to using technology. Speaking of barriers to using technology for the elderly, the Washington Post was reporting on frequent crashes of the Social Security website in recent weeks, most of those for about 20 minutes, but in some cases up to several hours, where the site was effectively inaccessible. Also, even when the site is functioning, many users have reported being unable to log in or receiving disconcerting messages incorrectly saying they're not currently receiving benefits, although thus far, checks and Social Security payments have been continuing to arrive on time. The dismantling of USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, continues apace with the firing of a small team of aid workers who had just days earlier been sent to Myanmar, also known as Burma, to aid in relief following an earthquake that killed more than 3,000 people and killed many thousands more. If you watched our roundup on Friday, you may recall we said that RFK Jr. had announced that many of the 10,000 plus workers fired from federal health agencies were essentially terminated in error, and they expected to rehire about 20% of those people. But inside sources at Health and Human Services are telling Politico that's just not true. At present, they do not have plans to rehire anything resembling 20% of the workers who had been eliminated. Over in The Verge, we have a report that DOGE staff Gavin Kliger and Emily Bryant have been spotted at the Federal Trade Commission, where they've been added to the agency's directory of staff. The Federal Trade Commission, of course, regulates American businesses, including those run by Elon Musk and his allies in Silicon Valley, and also, of course, has troves of non-public information about their competitors, which would be illegal to disclose to a competitor, but would be very useful and valuable, of course, to those competitors. So something to watch there. CNN has reported that we should expect major cuts coming at the Department of Homeland Security, including the Secret Service, which has been strained in recent years. Relatively few details on that so far, so keep an eye on that story to continue developing. On trade, in the aftermath of the imposition of fairly punitive across-the-board tariffs, Elon Musk has lost about $18 billion of value in Tesla stocks alone. He seems to be a little bit off message here. At a public event he appeared at in Italy by a video, he called for greater free trade and ultimately the goal of zero tariffs. And then later on his social media platform, X, formerly Twitter, criticized Trump advisor Peter Navarro, who has been a vocal defender of this administration's tariff policy. In Washington, D.C., the full D.C. Circuit Court voted by 7-4 to reinstate the fired heads of the National Labor Relations Board and the Merit Systems Protection Board. Now, this is relying on a early 20th century precedent called Humphrey's Executor, to the effect that certain of these boards that have a kind of quasi-judicial or juridical function can have statutory protections that prevent board members from just being unilaterally fired without cause by the executive. That, of course, I think we can expect to make its way to the Supreme Court. And finally, the U.S. Space Force has doled out about $13.8 billion in contracts for launches over the coming years, of which about $6 billion will go to Elon Musk's SpaceX. That's the largest single award to one company. I think we can safely bet that contract will not be deemed wasteful or fraudulent by DOGE. That's our news roundup for Monday, April 7th. Please go to watchcats.show to check out the full WatchCats podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow with more news on DOGE. Catch you around.